I don't really want to run. I'm just starting to run. And then what do? You don't have that many rest days. So you would kind of double think whether you actually want to spend money on a coach or not. Hi, I'm Kate. I'm an ultra runner, a running coach, and a mother of two. And welcome to my channel, or welcome back if it's not your first time here. And today I want to talk about how you can build a training plan, or running training plan for yourself without making most common mistakes of a beginner, and also without paying a professional to do that. So let's say you've started running and you want to do it a proper way. You want to progress, you want to build up the distance, volume of running, you want to build up intensity. So there, I would say there are three paths you can take. So one would be just running as you want to run. Just go out, run, whatever distance, whatever pace, whatever time, whenever you want to, without actually having any particular schedule. So, well, this approach is okay on the one hand, because you're just doing it, basing your running on how you feel. But there are some drawbacks of that. Well, first of all, a typical scenario can be that a person starts running, their cardiovascular system adapts to the load much faster than their musculoskeletal system. And what happens is that person adapts to running load, to running, and wants to run more frequently, longer distance, or faster. And what can happen is that the person gets injured. I mean, apparently the body wasn't really ready for that, and the body couldn't actually adapt to that effort, and that would result in an injury that would hinder running. The person would have to stay away from running. We don't know whether they're going to come back to that. So that's one of the drawbacks. The other thing that can happen is that you're not really giving yourself enough training load to progress. Scenario number two is downloading some generic training plan from the web. That is one of the ways you can approach your training. Probably it would more or less work if you're an absolute beginner, you're not really fit, and you just want to combine running and walking. So there can be some kind of a very general plan that would work for a total beginner. But what happens then is that, well, first of all, you don't really know how to adapt this training plan to your life schedule, and it might not actually fit. You start playing around with the schedule. You don't really know what you can change, what you should change in case, for example, you've missed a training. And what happens is that it's either not a very consistent plan, or you make sorts of common mistakes that beginners make, like, well, for example, if you've missed a training, you just want to fit it in somewhere, then not give you a rest day. Well, I'll talk about that a bit later in today's video. Third path that you can take is actually getting yourself a professional running coach. So that is probably the best scenario, because a professional would actually know how to build a training plan. They would build it for you. It would fit your schedule. It would fit your fitness level. You can ask all sorts of questions. But there is one drawback, and that's, that time of a professional costs money, so you will have to be paying for the training plan. And I'm not sure that everyone, after spending quite a lot of money on a running watch, shoes, running gear, would actually want to invest into a running coach straight away, especially when you think like, well, I'm just a beginner, I'm just starting to run, I don't have any time goals, I don't really want to run fast at the moment. So you would kind of double think whether you actually want to spend money on a coach or not. Anyway, as we just now found out that all these three approaches, typical approaches I would call them, have their own drawbacks. That's why I thought it would be a good idea to go a bit technical and talk about how you can actually design a training plan for yourself. So let's dive straight into it. So what you would want to start with is actually assessing your fitness level at the moment. And you should think about whether you can actually run and how long you can run without getting out of breath, or not, at least not suffering. Whether you have any illnesses, any chronic illnesses that would interfere with the running, whether you have or have had any kind of injuries that eventually might come up because of the load you're going to be giving your body. So once you're through that, and I would say the most safe way would be to talk to your doctor. You would be sure that everything's fine, you can start running. But let's say we've done that, and here let's meet 3 runners: runner A, runner B, runner C. So runner A would be someone who can't really run without getting out of breath. Runner B would be someone who is more fit and can run for, let's say, half an hour without getting out of breath. And runner C is someone who has run before or done some sport before, but got injured and now coming back to running, or maybe they can't do the other sport that they were practicing and want to do running now. But let's say someone who can't really run at the moment without experiencing some pain or discomfort because of an injury. So a person like runner A, as I've described, would want to start with combining running and walking. But the main thing you would be aiming it at is consistency in your training. So I would say running 3 times a week would be a good place to start. So at first, we would aim at 30 minutes of movement, not running on its own, because as we said, runner A can't really run for 30 minutes. It's too challenging for that person. So a typical session that you can start with would be, let's say, 5 minutes of walking. Then you do intervals of 1 minute running, 2 minute walking, and then you end this with another 5 minutes or so of a cool down. What would be happening is that you'll be running for a minute, and then your heart rate would go up. And then as you walk for 2 minutes, your heart rate would go down. You would feel better. You can run again for a minute. But when you put together those minutes that you've run, it would be some certain time of pure running. You would start with that, and then you would slowly develop into first maybe increasing intervals of running, but then keeping intervals of walking the same as the intervals of running or a bit longer. Then you would start decreasing intervals of walking, and you would see that your intervals of running have become longer than intervals of walking. And then you're still keeping to that half an hour of the training. And then at some point, you'll see that you can actually do longer intervals of running, like let's say 10 minutes of running, 3 minutes of walking, 10 minutes of running, 3 minutes of walking, another 10 minutes of running, 3 minutes of walking. Yes, I'm aware there's 39 minutes already, but then you can, while you're moving towards more running and less walking, you can actually increase a little bit the length of your training. So that would be it for runner A. And then I would also top this up with some strength training, and you would be targeting feet. So you do some feet strengthening exercises, feet, calves, hamstrings, and glutes, and also building up core strength would be a good idea as well. You can find some of the exercises on my channel. I'll be posting more, or you can look somewhere else. So you just add that on top of the running. So you've done a bit of running, and then you can do a 15-minute session of strength, like leg strengthening exercises. Let's say runner A has been doing this for a month or two, and now they can run for 30 minutes non-stop. So that's when they meet runner B, which could have done that, or which could do this right from the beginning. And now we'll go a bit more technical, because this is the time when we will be differentiating between different types of running, and we'll see how quick you can increase your volume and how quick you can add up new, more running sessions to your weekly schedule. So you've been doing 3 running sessions a week. So this is the time when you can probably start distinguishing between your sessions and building up the volume of one of the sessions. It would be called a long run. So you can start by building up the length of the session by 20% a week, or to keep it even safer, I'd say grow one of your runs by 20% one week, then repeat it on the next week, and then the week after you'd increase it by 20% again. You can also start adding 1 or 2 runs to the schedule, but I would say don't jump into it. So add 1 and you'll have 4 sessions a week, and then wait for a while before you add the 5th session. But one of the most important rules that both runner A and runner B have to remember is that between the sessions, there should be a period of recovery. And for most beginner runners, a period of recovery would mean a full rest day, meaning that you're not really doing any running on that day. And yes, you can put in some cross training like cycling, but I would say it has to be extremely low intensity because it still gives you some training load. So to be safe, once again, I'd say just do rest days, take rest days between running sessions. Let's say if you want to do 3 sessions a week for your body, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of running, and then 4 days of rest, is absolutely not the same as doing Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then resting on Tuesday, Thursday, and the weekend. Well, let's say you've already transitioned to 4 or 5 sessions a week, and then what do? You don't have that many rest days, that many days in a week to put rest days in between. Well, as I've said, we're moving towards this when the runner has already done some training before that. So the body is fairly adapted to that schedule. So we can start putting in more training days. And once we're doing that, we can start thinking about different types of training sessions we can put into the week. Let's dive into that. I'll explain a few technical terms here, but I'll try keeping it as simple as possible. So probably you've heard about the fact that many runners train according to heart rate zones, but a beginner runner doesn't really know, not only a beginner runner doesn't really know. If you haven't done a treadmill test with a mask, wearing a mask, having your blood samples taken, you don't really know your proper training zones. You don't really know your heart rate thresholds. But generally, I would say there are different ways to approach it. But to keep it simple, let's think about aerobic threshold, anaerobic threshold, and an all-out effort. This would be 3 main efforts you would be using: aerobic, anaerobic threshold, and all-out effort. I'll talk about each of them in detail. So what is an aerobic effort or aerobic threshold? Well, basically this is the effort at which you can talk, with which your body mainly uses fat as your fueling source. It uses oxygen as well, quite a lot of oxygen to oxidize the fat. So basically aerobic running, it would feel like being able to run and talk at the same time, and to hold a proper conversation, not just spit out a few words, but actually talk in sentences, hold a conversation with your buddy, or maybe if you don't have anyone to run with, or you're just running on your own, you can run and recite a poem, you can run and sing. That would be the method to check whether you're staying in your aerobic zone and you've not gone above your aerobic threshold. So this is the effort with which our runners A and B, up to the moment that we're talking about now, should have been running in. So definitely not allowed, definitely not going way too fast, comfortable running. Next one would be anaerobic threshold. And I'm not gonna go into very specific metabolic details here, but I would say that this is the effort which technically one is able to sustain for 10K, and this would be the fastest they can run at 10K. That would be, let's say, the hardest effort a body can sustain for around an hour without really reducing the effort or without slowing down. How would it feel? So when you're doing some reps, some intervals at your anaerobic threshold, it would feel, as people call, comfortably fast. I personally wouldn't call it comfortably fast or just anything, there's nothing really comfortable about it for me. Men usually feel it's a bit different from women. It's a bit easier for them, but that's, I don't think that's scientifically proven anyway. It's just saying this out of my experience. But anyway, it would be the effort when you already feel uncomfortable, you are already breathing fast, but you can still talk in phrases, in words, and you can sustain that running pace, a fairly fast one and a fairly uncomfortable one, for a prolonged period of time. So that is definitely not going all out. It's not when you want to sprint and reach your goal in the distance as fast as you can. So that is something, when you run fast, you're not feeling comfortable, but you can do that for quite a while. And the third effort would be an all-out one. Well, I think it's pretty much easy to understand what it is. It is when you actually sprint. You go as fast as you can, fairly quickly. You will see that once you've started all out, your pace will start reducing a little bit. And usually people would do some shorter efforts in that all-out pace. Now we know the heart rate thresholds, or I would just say different intensities with which you can run and do your running sessions. So let's now talk about what types of running trainings you can do. I've mentioned one already, or actually I've mentioned two already. That was the long run, so a run that is longer than all the other on the week, and recovery runs, meaning that you're running slow, maybe even below your aerobic threshold. For some people it would be just jogging. For some people it can be walking, and that's totally okay at first. So that is when you are running, you're working out, but you're keeping it low intensity and you're not really getting tired. You actually feel more refreshed after that type of training. So there are different types of training. I've mentioned two already. Let me tell you about the other ones, which would be high intensity trainings. So these can be sprints, these can be hill reps, these can be intervals, these can be fartleks, these can be tempo runs. I'll talk about each of them, and I'll keep it as short as possible, just for you to get a basic knowledge about all those types of trainings you can do. But before that, I'd say that probably once we're trying to put this into the training plans of runner A and running B, we'll start with some shorter sprints that those runners can do during a session or after, in the end of the session. Like after you've done a fairly slow and comfortable run, you can start with doing, let's say, 5 10-second sprints, and then between the 10-second sprints you'll have, let's say, 50 seconds of jogging or simply walking. Totally fine for that, as recovery. So sprint is a very short interval of going almost all out or all out. Then you can think of doing intervals. So intervals, and probably you've heard about interval training. So actually what runner A started with was also interval training. Mixing up running and walking is a sort of an interval training as well. But here we'll think about running and jogging, and running not at your comfortable pace, but let's say at your threshold pace, the anaerobic threshold pace, maybe a little bit faster than that, maybe just under aerobic threshold. But anyway, that would already be running not that comfortably and not just doing a comfortable run and then walking. So that would be more of going harder and then jogging in between. But the idea is the same. Heart rate goes up, heart rate goes down, you recover, and then you can do the next interval at the same pace as you've done the one before. If you try covering the same distance at that pace, you wouldn't actually be able to do that at once. But as you insert those rest intervals in between, then you can actually sustain that pace. So a workout like this can look like a 10-minute jog as a warm-up. Then you go, let's say, 4 times 800-meter threshold pace, 200-meter walking or jogging. And then you can play around with it. You can increase the length of intervals. You can increase or decrease the length of rest intervals. The main idea is that you're not jumping from 4 times 800 meters into 7 times 1,000 meters. You would build up gradually. Another type of training you can do is called a fartlek. It is similar to intervals, but the difference is that between faster running segments, you wouldn't really slow down to a jog or to walking, but you would actually keep running, but a little bit slower, a little bit more comfortably. So that's another type of training. I would say introduce it later because it's harder than just doing sprints or intervals, but you can think about it, and you can either think of building a very specific training, like, think of after a warm-up, you would do 10 times 1 minute running fast, 1 minute running slower, but not slow. You can just go out and say, I'm gonna run faster to that lamppost, then I'm gonna slow down and run slower till the next one, and then I speed up again. So that's another way of doing a fartlek, which is, I think that word is translated from Swedish as speed game or pace game, something like that. I've mentioned hill reps as well. So hill reps is basically doing the same type of training, but uphill. And you can do something like going up, let's say 100-meter up, you go uphill, then you just walk down, and then you repeat that 10 times or whatever you do. Same thing, 200-meter, 300-meter, you can play around with that. You can do all-out effort up the hill. You can do threshold pace, threshold effort, I would rather say, because the pace would be apparently slower than when you're running on flat surface, but the heart rate and your effort would be somewhere around threshold. You can do longer hill reps, you can do more hill reps, as I said, build up gradually. So another thing you can do with the hills, you can do a hilly fartlek, meaning that you would go uphill with more effort. So you'll just kind of try keeping the pace the same. But then when you go downhill, it's going to be way easier than going uphill with this pace. So that would be some sort of an interval training as well. How to work with those different types of trainings in a week. So I would say you have to take a recovery day or a recovery run in between the sessions. Also, I'd say start by just one harder session during a week, then when you see that your body's adapted to it, you can start doing 2 harder sessions a week, sometimes move to 3, but I want to say that a long run can also be considered as a harder session. So not just the higher intensity sessions, but also longer sessions can be counted in as load sessions, in between which you would need rest days, recovery days, or just recovery running. So then for a more experienced runner, I would say a typical week would look like, let's say, Monday rest day, Tuesday a session, something like intervals, Wednesday recovery, Thursday a session, Friday strength work, or a gym session, let's say. If you can do a bit of running before that, that's not a problem. Depending on how fit you are and how you feel, just don't overexert yourself. Then Saturday may be another low intensity session, and then a long run on Sunday. It doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to be on those particular days. You can play around with strength work a little bit, but the golden rule is that you don't do 2 sessions, one after the other. And yes, professionals can do that sometimes. More experienced runners can do that, but that's a totally different thing. We're not talking about this now. We're keeping it simpler. We're keeping it fairly basic, and we're keeping it adequate for people who have recently started running or haven't really been doing a lot of exercise before. Where is runner C, you may ask? but runner C has been there waiting to catch up with runner A and B. So I'll remind you that runner C is the person who had an injury. And here is the moment, highlight the importance of strength training, because all this time while runner A and runner B have been training and running, I'd say runner C should have been doing strength work, targeting the area that's been injured. Of course, it's best to consult a professional, a physio, or some personal trainer who can help you with this. But anyways, if there's an area in your body that's been injured, first make sure that you've built up enough muscle to keep it safe from getting injured during running or during any other endurance sport that you're doing. I've mentioned before, and I'll say it again, both for runner A and for runner B, doing strength work between the sessions, between running sessions or after the sessions is really important. And once again, target feet, calves, hamstrings, glutes, your core. These are the main areas that you would need, that will be loaded and used while you're running. Do the strength work, and let me give you an example just to keep it simpler. Sometimes you can even do running sessions and insert some strength work into that. It would be something like running for a certain distance, let's say 3K, then doing some lunges, like let's say 40 lunges, then running another 3K, doing 40 lunges again, then running another 3K, and doing 40 lunges again. Or you can go for a run, and then after the run, just do a 15-minute session of some strength work. And don't forget about strengthening your feet muscles, because yes, you don't really get a sweat when you do feet muscle exercises, but it's extremely important to strengthen them, because just think about how much they work, how many times you'll land on your foot, on each of your feet, when you run, when you walk, whatever you do. It's our platform basis, it's our base. That's what we use every day, and especially much we do use it for running. Runner C has done the strength work and is pretty much sure that they're okay to start running, and then they would probably have to evaluate where they are with their fitness level at the moment. And I would say start easy on yourself. Make sure that the injury is gone, that you're not getting any pain in the area that has been injured, and then you can actually join runner A or runner B. Of course, I'm hypothetically saying you join in their training plan, in their training schedule. I hope that you find this video helpful. Please subscribe to the channel. Please hit the like button so more people can watch this video and start thinking about how they can build their own training plan and start running. And come back to my channel for more videos on how to train, for more training sessions that I'll be recording, and hope that you enjoy your running. Bye-bye.